Welcome to B2B Marketing Methods. I'm your host, Terri Hoffman, and I'm the CEO of Marketing Refresh. Let's face it, embracing digital marketing is daunting. This podcast was created to make it more approachable. Join me as we talk to CEOs, sales leaders, and revenue growth experts who will share lessons learned and tips from their own journeys. Welcome to another episode of B2B Marketing Methods. I have two special guests today. We have Hami Arrington and Stephen Brent May. The two of them are co-founders for a marketing agency that's based in Houston, Texas called 1 Foot Over. They're going to tell us their fun origin story here in a few minutes. But first off, welcome to this episode. Thank you both for joining me today.
Thanks for having us, Terri.
We're excited to be on talking with another agency owner.
Yeah.
We can share some fun stories.
Oh, yeah.
So we're going to just to kind of give the listeners a little bit of a preview. We're going to be talking a lot about strategy. I think it's so important. They have an important phrase that they've started to use as their mantra called clarity before tactics. We're going to talk about what that means. We're going to talk about the components of a marketing strategy, why it's so important to have those elements outlined before you dive into spending money on tactics and things that can go wrong. We're going to talk about hopefully some fun examples that we can both think of if we haven't ahead of time. I'm sure we'll think of them in real time. But the whole conversation is going to be about marketing strategy and why it's so important. So thanks again for joining me. And I guess let's get started with some basics. I'd love for you each to tell a little bit more about yourselves and your background in the marketing industry, and then how you started 1 Foot Over.
Yeah, so I'll start. So when I was young, my family had...
Hami, what? No, you're still young. What are you talking about?
Well, when I was younger.
Okay, younger. Okay.
My family had a marketing agency, a marketing advertising agency. So I kind of grew up in it. And when we would have dinner together after school, what we would talk about would be marketing problems and client issues, rather than talking about what I learned in school. So it's really something that I grew up, talking about and learning about for a long time. And then I went to school, got my undergraduate degree in PR, worked in the agency for a little while, my family's agency. And I said, I really don't want to do this for the rest of my life, this particular type of marketing. And so I went back and got my MBA and kind of did a realignment and went into B2B marketing. When I got my degree in B2B marketing or in marketing, I moved to Houston and I didn't know anybody in Houston. And so I joined AMA. And I think that's probably where Stephen can pick up this story.
Yeah.
So I did not grow up in a family of marketing agency owners. So my story is a little different. I went to college with full intentions of becoming a lawyer and had probably the worst advisor in college, because my advisor said, you have to major in political science if you want to get into law school. That's the only path, which is 100% not true. But I took my first political science class, loved it. Second semester, took the next political science class, and the professor said, if you took 104 in the first semester, it has nothing to do with the remainder of your political science career. This class is what the rest of your career in political science will be like. And I hated that class. And I was like, I cannot do this for 4 years. And talked to my advisor, and they were like, yeah, unfortunately, you really need to major in political science to go to law school. So the next semester, I decided to try a few different things. So I took economics, I took a journalism class, I took advertising basics, and fell in love with the advertising class. I loved the people, I loved the course. And so the next semester, I was like, well, I'm going to take more classes in this school, and just really fell in love with it. So that's how I ended up in marketing, was just, what I thought was going to be my career path turned out not to be my college career path. So I started out in hospitality marketing in boutique hotels and cut my teeth kind of doing a lot of email marketing. And then when the economy turned in like the late aughts, got moved to a sales position to keep my job, moved to Houston eventually. And I was like, you know what? Maybe now's the time to go to law school. Took the LSAT, and was going to shift my career. But right around that same time, I got another job and was introduced to AMA, became a volunteer. So the American Marketing Association kind of kept me on this marketing path, kept me out of law school. Hami and I met at a conference for AMA board members in Chicago. So here we are, both from Houston, both living in Houston, but end up meeting at a conference in Chicago and decided when we get back to Houston, let's get happy hour together.
Uh-huh.
So I won't jump into the details because you can actually hear it on our podcast in full details. But fast forward a few years later, we
Okay,
co-shared.
apparently I have to put the link in the comments to that now. So that'll happen.
I
Okay,
mean,
got it.
Yeah.
hashtag marketing. We volunteered together on an awards gala, worked so well together. We were both looking for the next step in our career, and we decided, what if we try to make something out of this as business partners? And so that's how One Foot Over started. And that was almost 9 years ago.
That is awesome. I'm excited because I had never heard that story before. So that was fun to hear after all the years of knowing the two of you. I'm glad you explained what AMA is as well, because I think even, it's not just for agency employees or agency owners. It's such a great organization for anybody who's in the marketing industry. We've got employees who are involved, and I have been involved in the past. It's a really great way to get connected, I think, to other people. And then, of course, there's tons of learning resources and career resources and things like that. But it's so good for just getting around other marketers who are going through the same things that you're going through.
Right. I mean, and it's, I've always said, like, similar to Hami, I didn't have a network when I came to Houston. And that was where I found a marketing network, but also at the same time, like, that's where you find friends as an adult. Once you're out of school, it's hard to make friends. And these are people that we've got common interest with. And so a lot of the people end up becoming lifelong friends.
Yeah, I think you're right. Obviously, every industry has their little niche conversations, but there's nobody who can geek out and really talk about their industry like marketers together. We could hang out all night talking about stuff. So that's a lot of fun. Let's start by having you introduce who One Foot Over is. What do you do?
Yeah, so we are all B2B. We only serve B2B markets. We started out trying other things like B2C, and we decided that that is actually not for us because we are too strategic. We really want to think things through from start to finish. And so it felt like B2C wasn't the right place for us. And so it just wasn't our favorite thing. And the two markets that we have really landed on are tech and industrial manufacturing. That's really where we shine. In Houston, I think that's really a great place to be. I mean, that's why Marketing Refresh is there as well. And so, yeah, that's really where we shine. And that's also where we've seen that we can make the biggest impact with the strategies that we put in place.
Now, I wanted to add, because I think that's important, also why we appreciate you having us on, Terri, because people might ask the question, well, if you guys are similar, why are you talking to each other? And our philosophy is, and we know it's yours because we've talked about this before, is like, there's so much room for good marketing and there's enough business for all of us. And so we actually do better when we work together versus looking at other agencies as our competitors. Like, who does that serve? So.
Yeah, I think that sharing information is really how marketing gets better. One of the reasons why Stephen and I got along so well, and the reason we started One Foot Over, was because we saw that the marketing in Houston was a little bit behind the rest of the country at the time. And so we said, you know what, we are of the same mindset. Let's try to make Houston marketing better. And that was really our driving force. And it's still our driving force today of making marketing better. That is really our goal, is to make good marketing. Yeah. So it has carried through.
It sounds really simple, but I can appreciate how hard it is to achieve that. And not because we don't know how to market, but there are a lot of noise in our space, and that really makes it hard for the people who are trying to buy our services. There's everything from gimmicks to people who use the exact same language as us that don't actually take the same approach.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes it very confusing as the buyer of our services to figure out, who to align themselves with. And I can, like, as actual competitors of each other, we have never, that I can recall, gone into a situation where we've been up against each other or pitted up against each other, because Houston is a massive market.
Right. Yeah. I can think of situations where we've actually referred business to each other versus.
Yes.
Exactly. It's really important to each one of our companies to find fit, right? And
Mhm.
find the appropriate relationship, the appropriate fit, alignment across so many different areas. It's now, I think, the third biggest city in the country. If it's not already, it's like really close to surpassing Chicago.
Mhm.
And something that I've always found interesting about Houston is that as large as it is, and as much as large of a business community as it has, it's a very sales driven, like B2B economy. And I think that happens in oil and gas pretty naturally. It happens in healthcare. It happens in multiple sectors in the Houston market. And it's so important to me as a mission for our agency to help people understand the importance of marketing and how that supports sales and works together with sales. What do you guys think when you think about that topic?
I agree. One of the things someone told me when I first moved to Houston, they're like, as large as Houston is as a city, they're like, it operates very much like a small town. And I didn't believe that at first, but it's once you get involved, like in the marketing community specifically, like everybody knows everybody. And the marketing community is huge, whether you're like agency, corporate side, healthcare, oil and gas, like you meet somebody and you're like, oh, oh, you know this person? Yeah, I worked with them 20 years ago at this company. And it operates like very much like a small town of a group of people. And I imagine that other industries are the same. If you're in oil and gas, like I know a lot of the people, know each other, even though they're huge, enterprise corporations there. So I think that's a really interesting thing about Houston was like being the third or fourth largest city in the country, like how small it can feel.
Hmm.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. We're always bumping into somebody. It's actually odd whenever, somebody comes up and we're like, what agency is that? I've never heard
Yeah.
of them before. That's really interesting. But to address your question about the sales people, I mean, we work hand in hand with the sales team. We are there to support them. And that's the message that we send because it's absolutely true. That is the reason why we exist so that we can help the salespeople. In B2B marketing, we don't do any sales. We can't sell anything for the companies we work with because there is a complex buying process. You cannot buy anything without talking to somebody. You can't just go online and hit buy or check out. The way that we look at it is we're here to help the salespeople, help them not only get the lead in the door, but also help them move the lead along, right? I mean, a lot of the companies we work with, their sales cycles are between, like 18 months. There's one client that we work with, their sales cycle could be 10 years. I mean,
Wow.
that is so long. One salesperson or a sales team just really cannot keep on top of checking in with those leads. And so marketing has to come in and help them move it along, help them keep top of mind. So yeah, if you don't get the buy-in from your sales team, your marketing is just not going to work.
And I'm finding more often than not in the last few years, sales is really pushing for there to be more marketing support and really working on getting their leadership teams to buy in. We track data all the time about how marketing can influence sales and impact revenue growth and brand awareness. And so I believe in it. It works,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah. And I think those words, like the words are important that you said, like influence and impact, because I always say, like, revenue is not a marketing metric,
Hmm.
revenue is a sales metric. But the ability to impact revenue is a marketing metric. The ability to influence pipeline is a marketing metric. But revenue as a number itself is a sales metric, not a marketing metric.
Yeah, right. Pretty important distinction. So when we were preparing for this episode, Stephen, you and I were talking about a mantra you've been using lately. So why don't you explain it? Like say what it is and give us some background on it.
Yeah. So Hami and I were sitting in our office just talking about things and kind of challenges. And, one of the things that kept coming up is the idea of strategies and working with clients and why are we doing that? Like, what is the purpose? And always asking our team that question. If a client says, well, we want to do an email campaign in Q3, pausing to say, well, what are you actually trying to achieve with the email campaign? Because maybe it's not just an email campaign, or maybe there's something else that we should be looking at instead. And so, we found ourselves asking that question constantly, like, well, what are they trying to achieve? What is the goal here? Like, what is the end result we're trying to get to? And we kind of came to this term, and I forget, it may have been Chat GPT or something where we first saw it. I forget how the words ended up in front of us, but it was this clarity before tactics. And we were like, you know what, that really makes a lot of sense. That's exactly what we're saying. We just didn't have the words around it. And that stuck with us. It's this idea that unless we know where we're trying to go or what the destination is, like we don't know how we're supposed to get there, or we can't come up with a path to get there. So at the end of the day, the concept is really about just having an end goal in mind before you even get started.
Yeah. Because we get approached with those kinds of, I think it's funny because most of the time when we're starting a relationship, clients tell us, we want you to challenge us. We want you to push back. And I think that makes for a healthy relationship on both sides of the relationship. But when you start pushing back, it can become a little bit uncomfortable, right? It's like, no, I like the CEO just asked us to get this email out in the fourth quarter. But,
Right.
our job as an agency is to like really protect their investment in marketing and really make sure, like, if you're going to spend that money, we want it to work. Because if it doesn't work, that's on us ultimately. And that's part of the evaluation of the relationship with us. So we're going to challenge it because we want to make sure we stay engaged and keep you as a client, but we also want to make sure that that's happening because it worked, right? Like if we're doing things that move you closer to the metrics you're trying to achieve, that builds on the relationship.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I think it's important to push back and ask the why and the why and the why, even though we probably drive people crazy sometimes. I think it's important.
Yeah,
Right.
I think that so in our experience, or my experience, it's been I think that the clients that we work with, they do appreciate that,
Yeah.
right? Appreciate of why are we doing this so that we can understand. They want us to have full clarity as well. I know that we talk about this clarity before tactics, but I mean they appreciate this clarity. But at the same time, I'm going to acknowledge, Terri, this C-suite factor, right? So whenever somebody asks for something, then that might just be the reason that, oh, my boss asked for it and it has to get done now because he or she specifically asked me for this thing.
Well, and I think that's part of our job too,
Yeah.
as whether you're on the corporate side or the agency side, to know like, well, what are the non-negotiables? What are the things that sometimes, yes, we just have to say yes to things that maybe we don't agree with, or we don't have like the full picture. Maybe we don't think it's the best approach, but maybe we can balance it by saying yes to this thing and then adding something else to it that we feel like is a better approach. But that's part of our job because, like you said, Terri, at the end of the day, we want to maintain that relationship. We don't want to go do work that we don't believe in just for the money.
Yeah.
But there's that balance of, yeah, sometimes this is what the client asked for, and it's our job to deliver it in the best way we can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the right balance too, I think. So we're talking about clarity, and I would say, is it safe to assume another word for clarity is strategy? Or is a strategy what provides that clarity? Oh man,
So,
it's a lot of
yeah.
marketing questions for a
I know
Tuesday.
that's a tough
You can tell.
question.
So,
I
well,
don't think that they're the same.
yeah, I agree. I don't think clarity is something that you get and then it's finished. I think it happens through the process. So I think before you even start with a strategy, you've got to have clarity about what you're even like, why are we putting a strategy together? What is the goal? Like, what are we trying to accomplish with the strategy? So I think there's that piece of it. Like a better word, goals might be a better word for clarity, but I also don't think they're one and the same. What are we trying to accomplish at the end of the day? Like, what is the ultimate
Yeah.
destination? And then from there, I think we can move into strategy.
Yeah, and I don't want to jump ahead too much, but when we talk about clarity, what do we want to do? What is this goal? But then what do we actually do? What do we do? What problems do we solve? Who do we serve? Those are those questions that we need to have before we can even get to a strategy. You need to understand your prospects, your potential clients, who they are, what their problems are, and how do you solve them?
I was going to say the reason that it's clarity before tactics too, is because what we've seen so many times is that whether it's the C-suite factor or something else, a lot of times marketers jump straight to the tactics. And maybe there's not a strategy. And sometimes maybe there doesn't need to be this well thought out, long drawn out, developed strategy. Maybe sometimes the strategy is we want to increase attendance at our webinar. Like we don't need a 30-page document to outline that. But if we know, well, we want 100 people at this webinar, we want this type of people, this is the persona we want at the webinar, this is the problem the webinar is going to solve, that kind of clarity up front helps us have better targeting, segmentation for, emails, things like that. If we just jump straight to the tactics without any understanding of who the audience is, what we're trying to help them get through, then that's where we've seen it go off the rails. And a lot of times it feels easier to just jump straight into the tactics so we can say, look, we're doing something. Marketing is doing versus, necessarily doing the right thing.
Right. Yeah. I think that's really important to identify. We also talked when we prepared about just, I guess, going back to the term strategy. Okay, so if we're thinking about an overall approach, we're working with a client, and I'm saying like we, as if each one of our agencies is working with a brand. It's like first understanding what they're trying to accomplish, who they're targeting, why they're targeting them, how they can help those targets solve their problem. What does your sales cycle look like? There are just some basic core issue, questions that we're going to want to understand. And then eventually these conversations evolve into the development of a strategy. I guess I've worked with brands before that say, well, we already know all of this. Like, we've got it. We don't need to take the time and allocate budget to actually putting together and paying for a strategy project, right? Do you guys ever encounter that challenge in building a relationship with a company and a brand? Like we already know it. We don't
Yeah.
need this to be something that we pay for. We're ready to just act on it.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that we encounter that a lot all the time. That is fairly common. I mean, a lot of times the reason why is because we're talking to people that are not marketers and they just say, just go get the stuff done, just get the stuff out. And then what happens is, okay, we'll do the stuff. We already know how this will play out. We'll do the stuff, and then the results aren't what you're looking for. And it's like, and then you go back and you say, well, this is the reason why we really wanted to know and needed to know this very first part so that we can understand and really make impactful marketing. And so, yeah, I would say that happens all the time. I'm sure you see it too, Terri.
No, I do. And I'm not like, I feel like the way that I'm bringing it up, or maybe even presenting it as a question, if the listeners are listening to it, this is not a question to make, to create conflict with the people listening to the show, right? This is in the spirit of like, we need people to understand why that step is so important and how you get value from it, because we want that money to be spent in the best way possible, right? No matter if they're spending it with our agency, your agency, some other agency that we're friends with out there. Like it needs to work, and it's not going to be successful unless that strategy is defined and that becomes a playbook then that people can follow.
And we start almost every engagement, especially like retainer engagements with clients, with a 30-day discovery. And what we found over the years is that when we get pushback on that and clients they don't want that, our own learnings over the years, we've tried it where we said, all right, we can forego that and jump straight in. It's never the best. The results aren't there and the relationship doesn't last. And we know why. So that's a line we've drawn now where if a prospect is like, well, we don't want the 30-day discovery because we feel like we're already there, we've already got that, we know that's probably not a right fit for us.
And probably not for many. They might just be ready to staff up at that point. Like maybe you need to hire some key employees and define those roles and you can direct them. And that's fine. But then you're probably not looking for an agency partner.
I was going to say, so this year, has been a tough year for marketers. I mean, for a lot of people, but marketers, I think specifically, if you're in-house and you work for you're a corporate marketer, your budgets have been cut.
Hmm.
Everybody's budgets have been cut, and we have been the victim of that. And Terry, I think that you've been the victim of that too.
Yeah.
We all have. I mean, I'm not telling any secrets here. And so in years like this, when you are having a choice of either cutting tactics or strategy, we would recommend cutting strategy,
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, the strategy, you're not actually putting anything out there. If all you have money for is tactics in a lean year, just go ahead and start putting stuff out there, because you might hit something.
Yeah.
That approach is better than just, there's no reason to do a bunch of buyer persona work if you don't have any budget to put any marketing out. So that's really our experience in this year and what we have been advocating for, because again, it's about the client, what's best for the client.
Yeah.
And it might feel like the antithesis of, what we're talking about, clarity before tactics. But to Hami's point, if you don't have the budget or the resources to launch the campaign that the strategy would have told you was the right thing to do, the strategy work is just going to sit there. If all you've got is money for a Google search campaign, then get a Google search campaign out there, because some of your competitors are probably waiting because they're like, oh, we don't have budget either. Let's hold off. At least you're staying top of mind. At least you're still getting some marketing out there. So there is a component of it where the market does dictate when strategy gets to happen. 2025 has not been that year.
Yeah, and I think that this is important to note too, is that this is what we preach internally with our team all the time, is like, you have to keep things moving. You can't just stop all of your marketing and say, oh, okay, let's do some buyer persona work before we put anything out there.
That's not practical. Yeah.
While we are getting all of our messaging and our personas in order and get some clarity. In the meantime, let's continue the marketing. You can't stop.
So on that note, I'm really going to go into the weeds here for a second, but I don't care, because I think this is important for listeners to understand. Most of our listeners are business people, and I say that as different from a marketer. Marketers are business people too, but I think, these are people who are in sales roles or executive roles, and they're managing the budget. So just because you don't have an overarching strategy, still be strategic with your tactics. And what I mean by that is, okay, Google ads for a big conference you have coming up makes sense. But what kind of ads are we running? What are we running them for? What are we trying to do with them? What are we hoping to accomplish? You still can follow those same steps for that niche campaign, and don't skip them. But that can happen a lot faster than stepping back and saying, like, what is our position in the market, and who is our persona, and should we interview 10 of them? Like, when you've got the time and resources for that, you have to do that so that things are going to be effective over the long term and have consistency. But at least don't skip those steps when you're doing just like a little mini strategy or mini campaign. You can
Yeah.
still be strategic.
I think that's a really good point. And I'll go back to like the webinar example. If every time somebody wanted to do a webinar, either their in-house team or their agency said, all right, perfect, let's put a strategy together. It'll take us 12 weeks to build a strategy. Like, you would never do a webinar. You can still do those steps in the interim. I use that example just because it's really easy to think about the promotion of a webinar, but you can still take those steps to build a strategy. And to the term we use a lot at our agency is to be intentional. Like, there has to be a reason you're doing it. Like, we're not just throwing spaghetti at the wall to see if it sticks. So why are we doing that thing? Like, if you're running a Google search campaign for this trade show you're attending, what is the purpose of that search campaign? How are you targeting it? So those things can still happen in the absence of the big strategy.
And I think this is where having a good relationship with your sales team is important, because they are the people that are the boots on the ground. They are the ones that are talking to the prospects day in and day out. And so you can ask them questions. They're going to look at it a little bit differently, of course, but this is when you don't have the resources or time to do a bunch of customer interviews. These are your people that you can ask, hey, what kind of problems are you seeing out there? What are they coming to you for? And I know that that's anecdotal. It's not in any way scientific, but it can give you some that, some of that tactical strategy work that can get you, assets out the door.
Yeah, no, I agree. Keeps the momentum going. I know we had a client this year that did that, followed those same steps and said, wow, we realized we actually have a huge pipeline and we have a lot of work stuck there, right? That's what our salespeople are really frustrated because they have so much stuck and they are constantly following up. So it's like, well, okay, here's a great opportunity for a campaign. It's people who are in the pipeline. Why do we think they're stuck? What are they saying? What do you think they're not willing to say? Like, what's happening? And then you can use that as a springboard to just kind of keep some momentum going, like you said.
If you didn't talk to the sales team, you would never know that.
Right. Oh my gosh, that's a whole other podcast episode that we could do.
Is
Yeah.
That's like a mini series. Because that relationship is so vital. And I think marketers just traditionally haven't really done a great job of managing that relationship the way that is productive to marketing. And it's been way too reactive. And like I feel like marketers own a lot of that problem and need to do a better job of it.
So I agree to an extent, but I will say we've been on the other side, and I'm not trying to like make sales teams the villains here, but we've been on the side too where we've asked, we would love to spend time with the sales team to ask questions. And, there occasionally you will get the pushback where it's like, well, I don't need my sales team involved in marketing. I need them busy selling,
Oh,
which
yes.
so I think there's fault on both sides. And so let's just end all of that fault and just work together.
Yeah. No, I agree. We just need more like crawfish and
Right.
types of beer and karaoke, I think, and that'll
Right.
help.
That,
exactly.
that sounds like an excellent party. I'm down.
Everyone could get on board with those things. One other thing we talked about when we were prepping for this episode was I'm going to use some terms because I think, first of all, marketers, we just have so much vocabulary and it's insane. And we have like 4 words that all mean the same thing. And then our clients are like, wait, I thought that was called this. I'm lost. So one of those is marketing strategy. Like if we're preaching and advocating for marketing strategy to be developed, what is that? Is that a calendar? Is that a plan? Because I think it's important that we educate our audience that those are different things, right? When we get hired to put a strategy together, sometimes people are like, well, wait, I thought you were going to give us a calendar. Where, where's that list of stuff you're going to do next quarter? Right? And maybe that is part of it, but I think we don't do a good job of defining what those terms mean. So it's clear.
I agree. We had a former client who would almost always say, I feel like what we're missing is a strategy. We're missing a strategy. And we would put a strategy together. And every time the strategy was presented, the comment was, but I don't see a list of tasks of who's doing what with when it's going to happen. What are the due dates? And I'm like, well, that's not a strategy. And so I think to your point, there is so much confusion around the difference between a strategy, a plan, full transparency. I feel like I would know how to put a marketing strategy together, but I don't know that I can explain it. If you said, what is a marketing strategy? At this point, I think I'm confused because I feel like these terms have all gotten convoluted.
Yeah.
I think that what we need to do is meet our clients where they are, right? So
Yeah.
I think when a client is asking for a strategy, they're not looking for one of these 80-page documents, which I think that's where the confusion comes in for us anyway. We don't like these 80-page strategies because literally nobody ever looks at them ever again. But when a client is asking for a strategy, what they're really looking for is a plan. Do you understand what we're doing? We're not just shooting from the hip and saying, hey, this feels like the thing to do today. I think that that's really what they're asking for. We're paying you for marketing. Do you understand what we're trying to do? And do you know what the steps are to get there? I think that's really what they're asking for. They're not asking necessarily for this big giant document of the traditional marketing strategy. They're looking for a plan.
Hami with the voice of reason. I think you're right. I completely agree. And it doesn't Like I can see that regardless of the size of the company that we're working with. I mean, we have clients that make single digit of millions of dollars in annual revenue, and we have clients that make several hundreds of millions in revenue, and they all want the same thing. Like, do you get what we're trying to do here? And what
Right.
are you going to do about it?
Yes, exactly.
Well, and I think they're trusting us that we have it under control and that we're keeping up. I think this year has been an interesting year for that with, you know, I hate all the acronyms, but GEO, like that's the one that gets thrown around the most by non-marketers. Um, and I always say this, and this no shade to like Vistage, but I feel like I always say like CEOs sit in a Vistage meeting and hear from a speaker, and then you get a text from your client contact, and they're like, our CEO just forwarded me this email and said that they heard that Google only reads the first 1,000 words of pages and or first 1,000 words on a website. And we're like, oh, they must be at Vistage today because getting shitty SEO advice. And so, I feel like it's important to know that like they're trusting that we know what's going on. We're keeping up with the trends. And then when we're putting these plans or strategies together, that we're not necessarily chasing the shiny new thing, but that we know what's happening in marketing because they're hearing a piece of it. We're the ones that are keeping up with what's happening in our industry. They're only hearing snippets here and there.
Yeah. Yeah. I do think that we can, oh my gosh, that example is so real. And if I worked
Yeah.
in-house as a corporate marketer for years before I started an agency, and the amount of those inquiries that you get on a daily basis are just, they were bad 20 years ago, so I can't even imagine now.
In my last in-house role, marketing was not the most valued function at that company, but we would get, I still remember specifically, it was a software company, and the marketing team got a email from, I believe it was the CEO one day called You Are Not the User about this article about how we have to take ourselves out of it because we are not our audience. And I really just wanted to reply and be like, right back at you with the product. Because I didn't do that, but that's really how I felt that day.
You wanted to. Yeah. Oh, I think we've all had those thoughts.
I feel like there could be a whole episode about like marketing trauma too.
Oh yeah. Well, I know. And Hami, I mean, for her, it sounds like it goes back to the dinner table.
Oh my gosh, yeah. 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 I was
Yeah.
in automotive. It was automotive. Like,
Oh man. Oh, okay. That's a special kind of marketing
yeah.
trauma.
Which has always been her stance. Like, I mean, we've gotten leads before from like not dealerships, but like related to automotive. And Hami's like, I want nothing to do with it. I don't want anything that has anything to do with that industry.
I don't blame you.
Mhm.
We're
It's
developing a lot of great series ideas here because another, like, tied to that, I'm really tired of these industry solutions where it's like, this is the platform, and all you need to do is sign up for this platform if you're in automotive or if you're a restaurant or if you're a spa or whatever. Pick your industry. And then we're the be all end all. All you have to do is put all your stuff in here and you pay us $800 a month and then you get all the leads.
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
No,
Yeah. But and if you leave, then you don't get any of that
you don't
data.
get any of it. Yeah, it's gone. We own the website, we own all your reviews,
Mhm.
everything. Yeah,
Mhm.
sounds
Yeah.
great.
Like as an entrepreneur, I appreciate like the you figured out a way to keep people sticky. But as an ethical human, I'm like, I just don't know. I can't get on board with that.
Yeah, that's not the way that we operate. We want you to be sticky because you like us, not because you.
No, we
I
track
feel.
you.
Yes.
Yeah. And we're good translators. Like I think that is it really ties back to a lot of the things that we've talked about today is our job as account people, so to speak, with working with clients is what are they really trying to say? What do we think they're actually after? Vocabulary aside, words aside, sense of urgency aside, what are they trying to do? And why, And sometimes we have the space to turn that into a strategy project, and sometimes we don't. But we have to know those things.
Yeah. I mean, I like to boil it down, and this goes back to like a concept from the story brand framework.
Hmm.
Everybody is just trying to survive and thrive. Everybody wants to keep their job and they want to succeed in their job.
Yeah.
And our job as their agency partner is to make them look good doing it. So our clients, whether they're like the VP, director, even if it's the CEO, like at the end of the day, they just want to feel secure in their job and feel like they're doing the best job they can possibly do. And they're relying on us to make them look good in that role.
Yep. That might be a good way to wrap it up. That seemed like a little bow. Um, yeah, seemed pretty nice. Yeah. Well, thank you guys. Thanks to both of you for taking the time to join us today. I think that was great. I would love for you to share, and I will put this in the summary of the episode and YouTube comments and all of those things. But how should people get in touch with you if they want to talk to you and get a conversation going?
So I'm on all of the social media channels under @Hami Arrington.
Okay.
So
And
reach out.
I'm on LinkedIn, Stephen Brent May. Instagram's a different story because I have a wine account on Instagram. So you can find me on there, Houston Wine Freak, but it has nothing to do with my professional life. And then our website, getonefootover.com. And then our podcast is called B2B Happy Hour, and we're on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube.
Yeah. I'll put in a plug for your email newsletter. It's awesome. They send out an email newsletter every Saturday morning. It's really good. I
Good reading.
go to their website and check it out. I won Reader of the Month one time. That's also one of my little claims to fame.
Hope you put that on your LinkedIn profile.
That would be so funny.
Under your awards and certifications.
Reader of the Month or week, whatever it was. But thanks again for being good industry colleagues and friends. And like we all rise together. And I appreciate the support you guys have given me over the years. And thanks for joining.
Mutual.
Likewise.
And one
Thank you for listening to B2B Marketing Methods. Please be sure to follow us on your favorite podcast channel and leave us a review. We'd love to hear from you and connect. You can find me on LinkedIn or visit our company website at marketingrefresh.com.